So if you've ever made a decision for your business out of fear, like avoid raising your prices, taking on the wrong client, procrastinating on posting to social, or maybe tweaking your website for the 40th time, and I swear I've never done any of those things, that's not a strategy problem. That is a belief problem. And today we're going to talk about why belief needs to be the first real strategy in your business and why nothing is going to change externally until something shifts internally.
For too long, entrepreneurs and business owners have been told they have to choose between profit and purpose. If you're tired of burning out, done chasing someone else's version of success, and ready to grow with more purpose, prosperity, and peace of mind, you're in the right place. Because every business has the potential to do good and do well. I'm Chase Friedman, and this is In Pursuit of Purpose, where strategy meets soul.
So this episode is a big one. This is our final coaching deep dive of season 1. This is a season that has been centered around one essential truth. Your business can't grow unless you believe you can grow. And again, that comes from the inside out. And I've lived this. I have tried every tactic and strategy and tool imaginable and kept hitting that glass ceiling. And really the thing that was keeping me back was me. Limiting beliefs, imposter syndrome, not believing in myself enough to see the change that I was hoping for my business. Again, like I said, I've ignored it, I've resisted it, I've fought it, and eventually learned that belief is not just like this intangible soft skill. It can actually be structural and empower and inspire everything that you do in your business. It is the great unlock. It is the foundation that everything else rests on. And so today we're going to dive into that. And by the end, I think, and I hope, you're going to see yourself and your business in a very different light. But at the end of the day, I can help coach you there. You've got to believe it and see it for yourself. So many founders don't realize that their belief is slipping until they're deep in decisions that don't feel like them. So for example, you might start your business with a certain intention and a certain passion. But it might be months, even years down the road until you look back and realize that you've been kind of trending in the wrong direction ever since. And it might be a marginal shift, but over time that can become exponential. So for years, I said yes to projects that didn't always align with who I was, what I wanted to build, the type of company. And we do that for a few reasons as entrepreneurs, especially in a startup, right? You're saying yes to just get business and practice your craft and hone it and keep the lights on and pay the bills. But over time, with that expertise and with that practice, we almost need to flip the switch and start issuing more no's, right? Setting greater boundaries for the type of work and clients that we want to work with. When I started out, I was undercharging severely because raising my prices felt like this existential risk. Like if I raised my prices, everyone was going to walk away. Or people would think, wow, you're not worth that much. Am I worth that much? Should I charge this much? And I didn't really have a reference point. And it's hard when you don't really see into other practitioners or entrepreneurs and businesses in terms of what they charge. And again, we can get caught up in that mindset about chasing competition. We need to know our own value and our own worth. And again, the thing about pricing, it's all about value-based pricing, right? So not just because the industry standard says social media should cost this much or a website should cost this much, but what is the value in the eyes and the perception of the client and the business? How much is it worth to them? And how much exponential value are they going to get out of that, whether it's coaching or a deliverable? So I started building systems and pricing around making my clients happy, everyone else happy, and forgot about myself. I was self-sacrificing and I was over-delivering on everything. And I still do that to this day. I do believe that to an extent, that's what's kind of given me a competitive advantage in the marketplace. I believe in service, over-servicing clients, and sometimes under-promising, over-delivering. But again, not when it comes at your own expense, when you are toiling and giving everything of yourself to the work and not getting a fair market return on that. But that was my fault, not my clients. I didn't even give them the chance to say no or negotiate a price because I was already bidding it down, right, for myself to avoid sort of a no or a critique or a negotiation, or avoiding that conflict and that conversation. I needed to build the belief in me that I was worth more and the value that I provided was worth something to them. We become the prisoner of our own knowledge sometimes just because we know this information, just because we know this expertise in this craft. Think about how many years you've trained and developed that craft, and we sort of take it for granted, like, oh, well, that's kind of obvious. Well, maybe to you, but not to your client. A lot of this came from this imposter syndrome. I didn't even have the language for what that was at the time. I was hesitant to even say that I was an entrepreneur. I would have all these, an accidental entrepreneur, and I kind of came into business by, opportunity. That's bullshit. I had my own journey. It doesn't look like everybody else's, but at the end of the day, I built something from nothing, having really no education and experience in this field. And so very much bootstrapped, but I know, because I've seen other campaigns and the way other clients have been treated, that I was delivering just as much, if not more, than the competition. This wasn't a lack of strategy. This wasn't a lack of capability. This was a lack of belief in myself and what my business could deliver. And I see this every week with founders, right? They second guess their expertise, or they take it for granted. They defer decisions to clients. They sort of shrink in the moment to avoid judgment or critique or criticism. And they stall on the things that would actually move them forward. So it looks like the business is the issue. We're not getting enough leads or clients or deals, but underneath, this really is stemming from a belief issue. So belief is the invisible hand behind your decisions and your pricing, your boundaries, your visibility, your voice. The strategy can fix the systems and symptoms, but not if you don't have true belief in where you're going and how you get there. So here are 3 beliefs that I've heard and experienced countless times that continue to dictate or control how you view your business and how you run your business. The first hurdle are identity beliefs, okay? Identity beliefs sound like, I'm not ready. I'm not good enough. I don't know enough. People won't take me seriously. We have a lot of these identity beliefs when we're just starting out with a new business, because of course we've never done it before. It's untested and unproven. And I battled every one of those for years. As the business grew, I felt like I was like one wrong move away from falling apart, right? It was so fragile. So I played small. I took the safe projects. I kept the safe pricing. I shared the safe opinions. In the end, not only was I limiting myself, I was limiting my value to my clients. I wasn't bringing all of the value that I could to the table, because there was this fear of, quite frankly, fucking it up. So I tempered, and that wasn't working for either party. So here's the thing. I didn't realize how much I was outsourcing my identity to other people's expectations. Identity drives how you show up in the world. And we just did an interview with Hamza Warfa, who shared an incredible figure, an incredible backstory and lived experiences as a refugee, through a civil war, a self-made man in so many rights against all odds. And he was self-limiting in his early parts of his career. He felt like he would be judged by others for the way he looked or the way he sounded or where he came from. While I view him, and I'm sure many others view him, as an inspiration, but he was afraid to wear those badges on his sleeve. And I think a lot of us show up in the world with that. The more that we can be open and vulnerable, I do believe is sort of endearing and ingratiating for not only your team, but your clients. So identity drives how you show up in the world, and how you show up shapes everything else. So something you can work on and exercise, if you will. Who would I be if I believed I was already enough? Ask that of yourself. Not perfect, not finished, like just enough. Let's go a step further. I'm more than enough. What would the version of me charge? How would they speak to clients? How would they position themselves if they were to give a keynote speech? You have to visualize and really see and feel and think as that version of yourself that you aspire to be. And it's hard. It feels uncomfortable. It feels awkward. Even getting on a podcast and speaking to you today, anxiety and nerves before this, right? But at the end of the day, if this is something that I truly believe and feel like hopefully can help someone or many people out there in the world, then it would be a disservice to just kind of keep that to myself and not share that. So the next obstacle that we kind of run into are capability beliefs. Capability beliefs sound like, I'm bad at sales. I can't charge that. I don't know how to build a system. I'm not consistent. These are capabilities, what you can or cannot do in your business or achieve for your clients. And that was me, especially around pricing, right? As I've shared, I was terrified to raise my rates, terrified of people saying no or being judged for wanting more and expecting more. And trust me, a lot of clients will demand more, and that's sort of boundary and scope creep. And you need to learn to know your own value and worth and not just say yes to that as well. Saying yes is a slippery slope. It'll just continue to kind of placate needy clients instead of knowing your value, knowing your worth, and saying, you know what, sorry, that's out of scope. We're going to charge you for that. I stayed in that loop that so many creatives and founders know. Do more, charge less, burn out, repeat. And as I've shared with my story, that was a cyclical effect for me. Constantly feeling like I wasn't doing enough, needed to do more, keep the same pricing, and then just kind of burn out. How would I possibly scale at this level, at this cycle? I needed help to break that cycle, right? That's where coaches come in. Therapy, a lot of therapy. Accountability from a partner or a teammate or a team member or a peer, right? Someone you can speak to and they can help hold you accountable to not just kind of saying these beliefs out loud, but are you sort of, again, walking the talk? Coaching, another big one, right? That's why coaches exist. I do believe that if nothing else can be a great sounding board and objective view and accountability holder to help become the change that you see for yourself. But the real shift came from action. So the first time I raised my rates, I was like going back and forth, probably 20, 30 times on a proposal on a deck. Should it be higher? Should it be? No, I kept raising it and lowering it back down and justifying in my mind why I shouldn't charge more. It was crazy. I was psyching myself out, finding reasons to avoid charging more. But guess what? I went for it. I ripped the Band-Aid. I charged probably 25% more than I typically would for the same service. And the client said yes without even blinking. And like that one yes helps trigger something, trigger a new belief in you. It changes something. This is something that I encourage you to do, whether it's with pricing or how you present yourself, how you present your services, something that is so uncomfortable that you are physically like shaking, that you are anxious to even consider saying out loud, and just rip the Band-Aid, give it a shot. You might get a no, but you might get a yes. And when you get that yes, it expands the realm of possibilities. Now it seems silly to even go back to that level of lower pricing that I was kind of committed to before. And again, it's not for everyone. You'll still get some no's on the bigger pricing model, but guess what? We've talked about this. Think about sort of Pareto principle. There are customers out there that are willing to pay a price premium. And I promise you, those clients are probably more aligned because they value your expertise and they're willing to pay more and then perceive the investment more, take it more seriously, take you more seriously, follow directions that you give them as a coach versus sort of someone who's going to like really kind of work you down on price. They're always going to be price sensitive and it's never going to be good enough for them. And quite frankly, that's going to be a little of a headache and a nightmare client. I've been there. So know your worth, up the ante, and guess what? You raise your prices 50% one day. Well, guess what? You might lose some clients, but the clients you do keep will probably more than make up for that loss of other clients just based on the increased margins. So again, an exercise here, do something uncomfortably small, like small little change, right? Small wins kind of rebuild those capability beliefs, okay, through repetition. But take a first step. And then finally, where it can really get paralyzing are the limiting future beliefs. So these are things such as, people like me don't, build 7-figure companies. If I grow too much or too fast, I'll burn out again. Or success always has to come with sacrifice. As I've said many times, profit at all costs. The one that held me hostage the longest, if I grow again, I'll lose myself again. So being afraid to continue to grow the business based off of what has kind of transpired in the past, burning out, losing sight of my purpose, losing the joy, it doesn't mean you can't rebuild in a new way. And for me, a lot of that was kind of scaling down. It wasn't just simply chasing growth for the sake of growth because that was the end-all be-all prescription for business success. No, business success can mean different things to different people. Instead of driving sort of a big, slow-moving ship, I wanted like a little 2-seater speedboat cruiser that was agile and easy and maybe a couple people by my side. But you got to choose what that is for you. I had built a business once that looked great on paper, and to many people would be a dream. But for me, it ended up costing me some peace, some energy, and my sense of self. And I made the decision that wasn't the right course for me. So for a while, I stayed small on purpose because it was less risk, right? Less exposure, playing below my capacity. But then over time, you rebuild belief and you create new rules for yourself. Doesn't matter size, big or small. These are rules about boundaries, about clients, about pricing, about the energy that I would put into my business and my life and myself, alignment. And once you can kind of recalibrate and reprioritize and find that balance, I think you'll find that you can operate at a much healthy clip, whether that's in launch mode or growth mode or sustain mode. But you got to be real and honest with yourself around what your future goals are and what you can do to get there on your own terms. right? Run your own race at your own pace. These are rules like I will not discount my value. I will not say yes to misaligned clients. I will not compromise my well-being for more revenue or clients. I won't work with brands that don't align with my values. I worked with a great coach that had me build a list of qualities of my divine right client, right? So all the things that I would hope and dream of from a perfect ideal, as we called it, divine right client. This client will fully appreciate my value and worth, be willing to pay my highest rates, will act with honesty and transparency, loyalty, collaboration, fairness, all these different things, right? And I was really trying to be conscious about how to sort of vet and filter different clients that I would work with, and learn how to say no to those that weren't aligned. And it's still a constant practice. But sometimes saying no to something can be just as energizing, if not more so, than saying yes to a client that you don't feel really psyched about. Right? That no is empowering because it's, again, you're doing things on your own terms. I did the same rules for my business. I kind of wrote this manifesto about what I was going to do, how I was going to work and operate and run my company and show up in the world. And I published it and I shipped it. Like, talk about accountability. Like, it wasn't just for me to pin up on a wall in my office. It was for other people to see and read and hopefully at some point hold me accountable. And if I was kind of steering in the wrong direction, call me on it. So that accountability as well is key. Like, those rules weren't just boundaries, they were activators. I know I'm sharing a lot about me with you, and hopefully there's some things that you can align with or connect with your own experience in your own world and building and growing your business. And this isn't an exaggeration, but when I committed to that renewed clarity and confidence, it was like magic. It was incredible how fast new opportunities, new projects, new clients came rolling in. And you can't be afraid to put that out into the world. But once I truly started to articulate with confidence and clarity and boldness who I wanted to work with, the projects that I wanted to take on, the way I wanted to work and run my business, people of aligned values and beliefs would come out of the woodwork, right? We've talked about this before, about finding and connecting with your tribe. That's what we're talking about here. But you got to take that leap yourself first. You got to commit and demonstrate those values, and you will attract the people that want to support you along the way. This is the journey we're taking here, but it's got to start with you. Yeah, I can help coach you and give you the tools, but you've got to make that leap yourself. So this is my intention and roadmap for this show. This first season has been about reframing our way of thinking about business and ourselves, breaking old models of thinking and old habits, rethinking and believing in a new possibility and a new way forward. Season 1, belief, rebuilding the foundation and the construct and the schema about how we look at business and profit and purpose. Season 2, right, upcoming, is going to be about clarity, like building the blueprint. Now that we are operating on a new operating system, a new belief system, what is the blueprint forward? How do we carry that into building and reshaping the business we've been dreaming of? And then just a little peek ahead, season 3, conviction, that's where we operationalize everything that you've built. But first we start with clarity, or move into clarity. A guide coach of mine likes to say, practice to remember and remember to practice. So before you close this episode, choose one belief that you're ready to retire that has been plaguing you, that you feel is just no longer fits. And then one new belief that you're ready to practice. And don't just promise it, perform it. Walk the talk. Share it with people you trust. Share it with the world. Put it out there. Have some accountability behind it. And that's how you're going to shift your identity. And that's how you reclaim the future you're seeking and find the joy in your business, in your pathway, your journey. That is how you build a business that it feels aligned and grounded and yours. I want to thank you for being part of this first chapter of In Pursuit of Purpose. And if something shifted in you, even one small belief, one boundary, moment of clarity, I would love to hear it. It would mean the world to me. So send me a DM, share your insights, your thoughts. As I like to say, onwards. I appreciate you tuning in today. I hope this brought you a bit of confidence, clarity, and conviction on your business journey. If something here resonated, do me a favor, leave a quick review or share this episode with someone who needs to hear it. It goes a long way in helping more people find the show and start their own journey. And as always, you'll find all the resources and ways to connect with me in the show notes. Now, go take that next step in building the business you've been dreaming of. Wishing you continued purpose, prosperity, and peace of mind.